In this video, we're going to cover the 6 most common challenges that paddlers have identified for us. We identified those 6 by reaching out to our audience and asking what the challenges that they have during paddling are. The most common challenge that people brought up was their actual board selection. And board selection is a big challenge because there are so many options and so many opinions out there. And most of the opinions come from people who are trying to sell you something. So we've attached our board buying guide here, and it will help to get you in the right direction for what board might be appropriate for you. But the factors that really go into it are the types of paddling you want to do, how you plan to use your board, the types of water you're going to be on, what your budget is, what your storage is, how you can transport your board. There's a lot of factors that go into it. So in our board buying guide, you'll find questions to ask yourself, and in those questions we help to give guidance about knowing whether a solid board is going to be better for you, maybe an inflatable board, what style of board you're going to use, and so on. So that's where you can refer to look and start to understand what board might be best for you. But ultimately it's going to come down to some research on your part and finding a brand and a price point and a board style that you're comfortable with and you think is going to best serve your needs. The next challenge that people brought up was getting back on their board. So here I like to differentiate between a solid board and an inflatable. An inflatable board is always going to be more challenging to get back on because it has a thicker rail, and so you have to climb up further. And also it doesn't sink into the water quite as easily as a solid board. So if you're on an inflatable, it's not an impossible challenge, but if you're a small person and you've got an inflatable with a 6-inch rail, which is the standard size rail on an inflatable, then it is going to be a bit more challenging. So we talked about the center of balance on the board at the carry handle. So that's the widest and thickest part of the board. So if you're able to get on there, it puts you in the center of the board. You don't have to climb around once you get back on. But moving towards the tail of the board can be beneficial because there's less volume in the tail. The tail's easier to sink, and some people have better success at getting on there. Wherever you get on the board, kicking your feet vigorously in the water is going to help propel you up onto the board surface. If you're getting on your board from the handle, there's a couple of different options you can use. My preferred way is I just place my hands like I'm getting out of a pool. I put them on the sides, and then with my body in the water, I'm going to kick my feet and simultaneously push up through my arms, getting my torso up. Once you're here, then you can start to climb your legs up onto the board. Some people prefer to use the carry handle in the middle, which you can grab a hold of and use basically the same method, except for instead of both hands down, one hand's on the carry handle, and you kick to get your torso up. This is the widest and thickest part of the board, so coming back to the back is much more sinkable. I can push the tail down into the water when I put my weight on it, which means that the board goes more underneath you while you're in the water. So if you're coming back towards the tail, you can start to submerge the tail while you get your torso on, and then start to climb your way back towards the carry handle. Another challenge that we wanted to help solve is the challenge of stability on the board. And it does take a little bit of practice to start to build your stability because you've now put your body into a different environment, and your muscles and brain need to build the neural networking to help yourself balance on your board and understand how to respond to a moving surface under your feet. The biggest challenge for stability that we see with folks is that their paddle boards are underinflated. So if you're on an inflatable board, you want to shoot for 15 psi or higher for inflating it, depending on what the manufacturer's recommendations are. But most of them have at least a maximum of 15, and some of them have up to, say, 25 psi. So when you're inflating your board, you really want to be shooting for at least 15 psi. And the tough part about this is that as you're inflating, it starts to become challenging to inflate it if you're doing this manually around 6 or 7 psi, and the board starts to feel pretty firm. But when you have that low of pressure in the board, it's going to be floppy and very tough to balance on in the water. Another part for stability is to keep your blade in the water. So if you're on your board, whether you're sitting or kneeling or standing, if you're standing in one place, you want to have your blade in the water because that entire surface area acts as a brace against the water. You also want to take paddle strokes. If you feel unstable on your board, start to take paddle strokes. That helps to give you stability as you move through the water and helps take your mind off of the fact that you feel shaky. Maintaining your position over the carry handle is another piece that will help you to maintain your stability. staying in that centered position. And you can either have your feet parallel to each other, or some people prefer to take just a little bit of a staggered stance when they're paddling. The last bit of advice for helping to maintain your stability when you're standing is to keep some softness in your knees. The softness in your knees allows your body to absorb some of that movement so you can start to flow with the water as the water moves underneath you. Another common challenge that people brought up was their feet cramping or having feet pain while they're paddling. And this is very normal. It takes a long time for your feet to get used to being on a paddleboard and to build the strength. So when you're standing on your paddleboard, you're now on this moving surface, and your feet want to clench down onto and grip the surface underneath you to help try and keep you stable. When you do that, that starts to build cramping in your feet. So ways that you can offset that are to move the weight around, wiggle your toes. I like to do some lifting my feet up, moving the weight into my heels, just to start to move the blood around and to remind myself to relax my feet. And this is something that takes some constant reminding for a while, to relax your feet, because you're not actually gaining much more stability, but the body thinks that you are by starting to clench down. The other way that you can start to relieve that foot pain is by switching positions. When your feet start to hurt, go down on your knees, sit on your board for a while, and give your feet a break before standing back up. The final challenge that we'll talk about in this video is paddling into the wind. I don't think I've ever met a paddler who loves paddling into the wind, but going out on the water, you're going to encounter wind more often than not. When you're paddling into the wind, you want to continue to paddle. As soon as you stop paddling, the wind's going to push you in the direction that you don't want to go. Taking up less space with your body can help you to go into the wind. So you can either consider sitting or kneeling on your board to take up less space, or bending your knees more just to take up less overall surface area with your body. That creates less wind resistance as you're paddling into the wind. This is also a place that feathering your blade comes in handy. When you're moving your blade back to take your next stroke, if you turn your top thumb towards the front of the board, that moves the power face of the blade away from you and allows you to slice through the wind. So if I have wind coming at me and I'm bringing my paddle forward this way, then the wind is pushing against this entire surface area in the direction I don't want to go. If I can rotate my blade and bring it forward, then I slice through the air and it acts less like a sail. So once you've got the feathering down, when you're paddling forward, taking quicker and shorter strokes can help you paddle upwind better. So here, where I would normally take a stroke, this is my normal stroke length. That's about my normal stroke length. When I'm paddling into the wind, I'm paddling about half that stroke length while I feather my blade to help move upwind. If you find yourself in a really high wind and you're really struggling to make headway, then prone paddling is another way that you can paddle into the wind. Prone paddling requires you to lay all the way down on your board and you paddle with your arms like a surfer. You want to make sure not to lose your paddle, so when I lay down to prone paddle, I bring the blade of my paddle right under my chest, the handle sticks out the front of my board, and I paddle with my arms. It's important when you go out to paddle into the wind first. That makes sure that you do your most challenging paddling in the beginning when you have the most energy, and then the wind can help to push you back. If you paddle with the wind first, you tend to go much further than you realize, and then you can have a really hard time getting back to your starting location.